So the other day, I was messing around on Zhihu, which is the Chinese equivalent of Quora, and there was an interesting thread over there that spawned a ton of discussion. The OP asked what everyone thought the best Xiafancai or over-rice dish was, and the sheer diversity of responses was like overwhelming. It actually made me think back to when I saw basically the exact same thread over on Reddit. It's just one of those things, I guess, that people can get fanatical about the world over. And I mean, why not? Over-rice dishes can be super simple. They can also be a bit more involved, but either way are like the aesthetic ideal of a one-person meal. So we wanted to show you 3 different over-rice dishes today. First being a simple saucy diced pork and mushroom dish called xianggu roding. Then moving on to a steamed squash and black soybean, because I mean it's technically still autumn. And finally finishing up with an absurdly dirt simple rice with Lao Gan Ma chili crisp that I guess is more of a college student style slap stuff together meal than a proper dish per se, but might actually be our favorite Xiafancai of the bunch. Now, I know that we do have a pretty obvious tendency to share some pretty intense recipes on this channel, but we felt that the whole essence of an over-rice dish is something that could be whipped up on a weeknight. So for this video, we gave ourselves a time limit. Our rice cooker cooks rice in 50 minutes, so each of these dishes can be whipped up in that time, from the first slice of the knife to the very last dish you scrub down. So first up, diced pork with mushroom. Here we're using 200 grams of pork loin and giving this a dice by hand. Please don't sub this with ground pork here. With this dish, diced loin or chop will have a much better taste and texture. Slice those by first cutting down into about 3mm sheets, then pile a stack and cut those into similarly thick slivers. Then align those slivers and finally give them a dice. Now transfer over to a bowl and we can marinate. So to your pork, first toss in a 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon sugar, 1/2 teaspoon cornstarch, 1/2 teaspoon liaojiu, aka Shaoxing wine, and you could sub that with whatever wine you feel like, and a 1/4 teaspoon soy sauce. Here we're using dark soy sauce for color, but regular soy sauce would also work just fine. Give that a thorough mix, squeeze in about a teaspoon of oil or so to coat, and let that sit for at least 10 minutes. Now for the mushrooms, we're using about 8 fresh shiitake mushrooms here, washed and with the stems removed. We'll give those a similarly sized dice by first slicing the mushrooms in half horizontally, then slicing into slivers, and just like the pork, aligning those slivers and getting it into dice. Now, to get out a bit of the grassy taste of the mushrooms, prep those by giving them a quick blanch in boiling water. Boil for about a minute, strain, rinse under running water, and once it's cool enough to handle, give those a good squeeze so they're not overly waterlogged when we try to fry them. Last up, a bit of aromatics. This was about 1 inch of ginger, gently crushed, 3 cloves of garlic, crushed just enough to easily peel them, and about 3 sprigs of scallion. We'll be using the white part of the scallion as an aromatic, so just cut that off and keep it with the garlic and the ginger. The green bits are going to get added separately at the end, so give those a slice and toss on a plate. So now to fry. As always when stir frying, first, lang yao. Get that wok piping hot, shut off the heat, add in your oil, here about 2 tablespoons or so, and give it a swirl to get a nice nonstick surface. Flame on high now. Immediately go in with the garlic, ginger, and scallion whites. Quick 15-second fry till fragrant, then go in with the marinated pork. Fry that for about a minute or so until the pork basically looks done. Then swirl a tablespoon liaojiu, aka Shaoxing wine, over your spatula and around the sides of the wok. Quick mix, toss in the mushrooms, fry for about another minute, then swirl in a 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce and give it all a mix. Now go in with 3/4 cup of water and bring it all up to a boil. Season with a 1/2 tablespoon oyster sauce, a teaspoon of sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon white pepper powder, and an optional sprinkle of MSG. Let that bubble for about 2 minutes, then go in with a slurry of about 1 tablespoon of cornstarch mixed with an equal amount of water. Quick mix, make sure it's good and thickened, add in the chopped scallion greens, and shut off the heat. Drizzle on about 1 teaspoon of toasted sesame oil, and out. Diced pork and mushroom, done. Okay, so squash with fermented black soybean. Here we're actually using a gourd called nangua. It's often mistranslated into English as pumpkin. And while we're not 100%, it's definitely a dead ringer for butternut squash, which could, at the very least, be a direct sub. We're using 1/4 of a gourd here, about 350 grams in all. First, scoop out the pulp and seeds, then peel the outside with a knife. Now slice those into about 1.5 rings, stack a couple up, chop into 1.5 chunks, and set those aside. Now to go with that, we're making a simple, bog-standard garlic with fermented black soybean sauce. So to a mortar, first toss in 5 cloves of garlic, 1/2 teaspoon salt, and 2 teaspoons of sugar. Give those all pound together for about 2 minutes, And if you don't own a mortar, by the way, you can alternatively use a metal bowl and pound with the butt of your knife. Then add in your doucher, the black fermented soybean. If you're familiar with that Chinese bottled black bean garlic sauce, that's basically what we're making here, but this is one of those things like mayo, where homemade is like 1,000 times better. We'll be pounding our half tablespoon of doucher for about a minute, then adding the other half a tablespoon and giving it only like 5 or 6 pounds. Separating the doucher like we did here is mostly for looks. We are on YouTube after all, but feel free to just pound them all together if you don't care. Now back to the squash. Drizzle over a teaspoon of oil and give it a toss to coat. Now spread those out into roughly one even-ish layer and spoon over the garlic black bean sauce. Now put those in a rapidly bubbling steamer and steam for 12 minutes. After that time, shut off the heat and drain out the excess steaming liquid. Definitely don't toss that though. We'll be putting that back in a saucepan, bringing it to a boil, and adding in a slurry of a half teaspoon cornstarch mixed with an equal amount of water. Quick mix, heat off, then drizzle in a teaspoon of toasted sesame oil. Spoon that sauce back over, mix it all together, and the steamed squash is done. Last up, rice with Lao Gan Ma. If you're not sure what Lao Gan Ma chili crisp is, feel free to check out our recent thesis on the topic here. But full disclosure that this is almost a non-recipe. Take white rice, add Lao Gan Ma, eat. But because we are theoretically a cooking channel, let's also top this with a quick fried egg. No special Chinese technique here or anything. First add about 2 or 3 tablespoons of oil to a pan, and over a medium-high flame, heat that up until bubbles form around a pair of chopsticks. Crack an egg, let it set, and shut off the heat. Tilt the pan so the oil pools, then spoon the oil over the white until it basically looks cooked. Toss the egg over the rice, nestle in a bit of blanched veg to give this some semblance of a full meal, and drizzle a touch of the chili crisps oil all over the egg to make everything all pretty. Simple, satisfying, and way more delicious than it has any right to be.
So right, 下饭菜. This is not necessarily a category of things, but more of an adjective to describe dishes that are really good over rice and starch, because all of this will just be also awesome on noodles. Now there will be so many of them to even start listing out. So yeah, if you are curious and interested, let us know in the comments and we'll be making more 下饭菜 in the future. And of course, check out the link in the description box for detailed recipe. A big thank you for everyone that's supporting us on Patreon. And of course, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos.